Hello everyone, welcome to my channel, and we are on part 2 of my life experiences, and this is where things get really fun and interesting and a lot more experiences. So my teenage years after all that happened was, I was being a teenager. I didn't want to connect with spirit. I was, living within the ego and wanting to go out and have fun and do different things with my cousin and my friends. And so for a period of time, there was like very little type of spiritual contact. Although I remember one of my friends, his mom had passed away. And of course, when spirit comes. And, at that time, you're a teenager. So, the thought comes in is, he can think I'm crazy. Like, is he going to get the message? Is he going to understand? And as desperate as his mom was to get in communication with him, I just sent the message and let it be that. And, not understanding anything else is just, it needed to be said, and I left it at that. So that was really the only time, that I can think of. There might have been other times, but honestly, I was just trying to I was trying to be cool. I was trying to live my life, I was trying to meet guys and that kind of thing. Like most teenagers. And it wasn't until I got with my ex-husband. At this time, I already had one child with me. I gave birth to my beautiful baby boy when I was like almost 22. And then from there, I met my ex-husband, and we started dating, and we had been together for, I don't know, it must have been like 2 years. And then I got pregnant with my oldest daughter, and then it was maybe a year after she was born, not even a full year. No, not even a full year. And so I was really sick when I was pregnant with her, and I couldn't really work. I was bedridden. And so after she was born, I stayed home for like 1 or 2 months, and I was back to work. And I was going to school. So I was going to school to become a dental assistant, and I needed a job while I was doing that to help out with our, the cost of our apartment, all the living costs at that time, up in Washington. And I started working for a place called the Country Buffet. And my boss at the time, and I hadn't even been there that long. I was only there for like a couple months already. And my boss at the time said, you really seem like you're really intuitive, like you have like genuine gifts. And I would really love for you to come with me to meet my reader, as he called her. And, I just felt safe with him. I felt like I've known him my whole life. And if coming to find out, I did. He was actually in a past life of mine, and he felt like my dad. And so, when we kind of had that relationship, even, where I worked. And so I agreed to go. And so I went with him to meet his reader, and he paid for my reading. Of course, I'm a struggling kid who just had 2 kids of her own, and I'm just trying to make my way through life. And so he paid for the reading, and we went and seen her together. And so he said, I really feel like, Jenny's got some genuine, authentic gifts to her. Like, she can read people. I just watch her in the shop, and I see her kind of doing it, and I don't think she realizes. And I just wanted to see what you thought, talking to the reader. And she's like, oh yeah, and you're going to be doing some really important work in the future. And I just want you to know you've got a whole team with you that's working with you, a whole army of spirit guides and ancestors and stuff. And I asked the question because I was like, okay, we're gonna find out what this thing with Granddad is about. And I said, is my granddad with me? And she said, absolutely, 100%. He's sitting right next to you. And she described the way he looks to me. And she said, if you start writing letters to him, you'll start to hear him more. and he'll be there to help you through this first part of your journey to get you comfortable and, until it's time for him to go and it's time for you to move on in your journey. And so, uh, we asked other questions. Like I asked, I was like, hey, was he my dad in a past life? Because I knew I could feel it. And she's like, yeah, he was actually a king and he was your dad, and your granddad is actually telling me he was your uncle at that time. And she's like, this was Renaissance time. And I was like, yeah, well, I wonder where we were at. And she was like, oh, definitely the Isles. And so then at that moment, I knew that, the Isle of Man was a part of my past lives. And I found out just how much more just recently and throughout my path as well, coming to think about it, there's like been little messages throughout my path that has led me to that discovery, but that was the first one. And so um, we left and we drove home, and right away my boss is like, I want you to just let go, and say what you see, because I see you seeing all the time, and I don't think you realize how much you do. He's been seeing his reader for a long time, so I'm sure that he knew the signs of like that staring off in a trance-like look as we're talking to our guides, thinking about it, because at the time when he said it, I'm like, I do? Like, since when? But, um, so I didn't right away. I was really scared and uncomfortable with this. I was just trying to digest the fact of everything that was told to me, and I was kind of feeling blissy, like joyful, because like I knew it. My granddad was with me this whole time. I just knew it because there was circumstances throughout my whole path where he was kind of the voice of helping me. And I always like to joke in some way that my granddad had his hand in raising me from the other side, which is kind of true in a lot of aspects. But I was trying to digest that, and I couldn't wait to go home. So I grabbed a notepad and a pen, and I started writing to my granddad of how much I missed him, how much I loved him. And I started hearing him right away. It didn't even take long. I think I got to the next page, and he's like, I'm here. He's like, I'm sitting right here next to you. And I could see him. And, having her tell me that, I didn't doubt it. Like innately, I just think back, I could feel it. I just could feel his presence, and I knew it, and I wasn't going to doubt it. And from there, I've always followed spirit blindly. And for that, I've had a few intense experiences about setting boundaries and discernment, as well as that not everything's all light and fluffy and magical on the other side, like heavy entities, as I will call them, because the whole dark and light thing, yeah, it's a description, but I don't believe in true evil. I don't believe in that. I believe in beings that have been fragmented from trauma and not being able to heal ego wounds. I mean, I don't know how you would describe that, but for me, it's like everybody came from source, and everybody has the opportunity to come back to source whenever they're ready. And for those that have made certain choices in life, or have had certain experiences that have went down the spiral, it's a lot of courage, because it means going within and working on yourself. And even with me, I have found out that to be very true, just going within my own self and dancing within my own shadows, and how hard and grueling, painful, but yet beautiful and amazing it can be, right? Okay. So me and Granddad are talking, and we're having a conversation, and I'm asking him all kinds of questions about, were you there at this time? And he would tell me certain things, and, talking with Granddad. And then I think it wasn't long after, it must have been like a week or so because my boss is just like wanting to get on this thing, and he was already talking to his customers that have been long time there, that they're good friends of his, of course. He's not just going to hand me to strangers, but people that he's known and has been serving for a while and has spent time with. He would say, Jenny, come on over here and, you know, um, tell them what you see. And I did. And they would look at me with this shocked look on their face and go, yeah, that's exactly it. Whether it be connecting to their loved ones or seeing something that's occurring in their life, and that kind of thing. And I didn't know how to guide them from that other than to tell them what I seen, because I didn't know. I was just discovering that I had gifts at that time, and that I was able, that I was seeing things about people all along. Like at that moment, I was able to look back in my life and go, oh, yeah, this is a thing. Like it is. It's a real thing. It's not just me, you know. Um, Even through all those childhood experiences, like the skeptic part of me is always like, psh, whatever, you know. But no, the experiences that I had reading for people was, it was an intense situation, tense awareness, and um, I'll never forget the one time that my coworker was there, and she's watching this all along, and she's been waiting for a couple days, I guess, to talk to me, as she told me later. And she said, can you read something for me? Can you look into my brother? And right away, he was right there. I described him to her, to the T, and I could see like a movie what was going on at the time of his death. And I don't want to really go into the experiences, or the storyline there, because like these are people's lives and I want to be respectful and loving with them. I'm just talking in a sense of my experience and from my aspect of things, but I don't feel like it's for me to share their story, okay? But I will share it in the aspect of where I played in the part. And I will say that I had the messages to come through and was able to see what was going on like a movie screen. Okay. And that's my whole point of even bringing it up to this point, is to let you know that I was seeing the occurrences like a movie in my mind and describing it to her at the same time. And I was really thrown back by that because I couldn't believe what was coming out of my mouth, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And I'm just like, is this really happening? And this is where it gets interesting. And I will tell you a part that I always forget to tell people about when my boss took me to see that reader is I asked my granddad if he had a message from my grandma that he would like to give to her. And he said, tell your grandma not to forget about the tulips. And this is where spirit's tricky. So after that conversation, or the reading that I gave to my coworker, I just stood there for a minute. I felt like the whole room was spinning. I couldn't believe what was happening to me. And I think my boss knew that I was tired, because he kind of sent me out on my break, like 10 minutes early than normal. And he said, why don't you go take a break? And I smoked at that time, so that I'm just bringing this up because it is a part of it. So I went outside and I lit a cigarette, and I was like, Granddad, if I feel like I'm going crazy. I feel like, I don't know. I'm not understanding what's going on. So if this is real, could you give me some sort of sign? And this guy walks out of the building that had been sitting at one of the tables and eating with his family, some kind of birthday party. They were all sitting together, and he walks out because he's just pacing in front of me. And the next thing I know, he walks up to me and he goes, young lady, smoking's not good for you. When do you plan on quitting? And I looked at him and I was trying to think of, like any young kid at my age, I was trying to think of some sort of excuse because, the good girl thing and, not really having an answer for it, but like hell if I was going to give up my cigarettes at that time. and and he says to me, "You'll give them up when you're ready." And he said, "I've got something for you." And in his pocket, he pulls out this balloon in the shape of what looked like it could be a rose or a tulip. And he looks dead in my eyes and he says, "It's a tulip." And I was in shock. I sat there flabbergasted. I stared at him for a couple minutes and he just stood there smiling at me with this deep, deep smile of, "Yeah, I'm here." And if I would have been smart, and I still say to this day when I explain to others when I'm teaching a class about, or have taught classes about connecting with spirit, I had the chance to hug my grandfather right then and there. And I was in such shock that I didn't do it. And he couldn't, I can't explain to you the body thing. I can't. I go into trance all the time. And I will morph into that personality. I don't know how else to explain it, but I'll morph into that personality and take on their characteristics so that my clients know that it's really them, that they're really getting messages and communicating with their loved ones. So I get it from that aspect, but this was full on. That guy wasn't there. Like with me, I have some sort of control because I'm like, no one's jumping in my body. Like I know that it can be done. I mean, just with the experiences that I've had with just like being able to trance into a certain way of being, for lack of better words, that I can take on their characteristics to a T. I know that it's got to be a possibility. And I've heard stories, like I'm sure we all have. They're all over YouTube. They're on documentaries, like paranormal documentaries and all that stuff. Like this has been a known thing, and it's been a known thing for a long time. I don't know how. I don't know how they do it, and especially for somebody who looked very mundane, like he wasn't. I mean, he might have been religious. I don't know. It's not for me to assume that, right? But he was not somebody that you would see trancing out to alternate to allow this to happen. But it happened just the same. And the way that he looked at me was the way that my granddad always looked at me before he died and after. And so I had a chance to hug my granddad, and I let that opportunity go because of the sheer shock that I was in. But he gave me that tulip, and I had that tulip with me for a long time until it's so weathered out that I just there's no point hanging on to it. I had the message. It was very precious for me. It was very awing and mind-blowing, and it was one of the most profound experience that I had that let me know, hey, this is all real. Spirit's real. This is all real. Like spirit is all being, and you just, the way that I can explain it can never describe to you what I felt at that moment and the beauty and the joy that I felt, so yeah, true experience. And it was hard for me to go back to work, when my mind was on that reading and it was on what happened to me out there when I was on my break. But I made it through the night. And after I get off of work, I just needed to take a breath. I just was like, oh my gosh, did all this, like, I'm still kind of in disbelief of all of this. And I'm like, did all this really just happen to me? And so I sat in one front of one of the flower boxes that was, there for parking and everything. And Granddad comes and sits down next to me in his dirty blue jeans with grease and holes, because he had his own machine shop business and, welding and hot chips flying. They cause holes in the jeans, and the coolant oils get in his jeans. And that's what he's wearing, and his white t-shirt with holes in it. And it's not the only way that he's came to me, but it's one of the main ways. It was his everyday, and it's how he felt comfortable. And so he's sitting there next to me, and You know, he always had like a goldish copperish tone of light around him that would bring out the red hues in his hair. And I always remember that because I'm thinking, gosh, you were so red. And like I was auburn, but my granddad auburn too, but very light, almost gingery auburn. And I remember him sitting there next to me saying, "You did good today, Jenny. You did really good. You know, you got this. And yes, this is really happening to you. And yes, this is what you're meant for." And mind blown. But so that was like the beginning part of my journey. Bef- is right before I met my first teacher. And so I graduated from dental assisting trade school, and me and one of the girls there really clicked, and we decided to, go into this one dental office together because they needed two interns. And so we were there, and she was in the area. And little did I know that the area that we were in was right by my great grandma's house. And across the street from my great grandma's house, which is my granddad's mom, was the cemetery that they were both buried in, along with my great granddad. Like I said, it gets interesting. But right in front of the house that my great grandma lived in for years was a shop that was a video store next to an auto shop. And my first teacher had taken that shop over, or that part of the shop, and made it into her metaphysical shop, where she did a lot of healing work. And so, my friend, during her lunch break, stopped in to it because she wanted to get a reading. And she told me, she's like, "You got to check out this shop. It's amazing. I think you'll really love it. Just something about it tells me you're going to love this shop." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I had a shop that was closer to my apartment, which was like 30-40 minutes away from here. And I was going in there for, different books to just understand what was happening to me, and talking to different healers there, but I didn't really fully on connect with them. It was just more of a, talking about a subject kind of thing. But this shop I went into, and she's like, "She's real. She had me spot on." And I was like, "Okay, well, I think I'll know if that's, authentic, because I'll feel it, at least, you would think. I don't know a whole lot, but I know that I'll feel something." And I go in there, and there's fairies, and there's, every spiritual symbol and item you can think of from Christianity on through. And a lot of shamanic stuff, like drums and rattles and, just everything. And so, I was like browsing around, and she's like, "Can I help you with anything?" And I was like, "I don't know." I was like, my friend suggested, come in here, and I thought I'd check it out. And, I don't really know what I need. I'm just kind of looking. And she looked at me and smiled, and she's like, I think I might know a book for you." And she handed me The Silver Broomstick by Ravenwolf, I believe that's her name. If I can remember correctly, it was Ravenwolf. And I looked at it, and I was like, "Oh, this is interesting," because I was Roman Catholic still. I wasn't, I wasn't afraid of it. I knew that there was, witch type religions out there, as I knew them as at that time. And I wasn't intimidated by it, but I didn't know anything about it really. And I thought, well, it's peculiar that she's handed me a book like this. And so I was talking to her a little bit, and I was like, "Well, what kind of readings do you do? What kind of services?" And she's like, "Well, I do tarot, and I read in that sense." And I used my gifts along with tarot, and she's like, "But I'm a shamanic witch." And, he would think, any Roman Catholic would probably run for the hills, especially with, all the programming that I went through as a kid. But I just felt this sense of I've known her forever as well. Like it was that another one where, okay, I know you. My heart knows you. I feel you. You feel like family. And so I wasn't intimidated or scared at all. And I didn't understand at that time what even a shamanic witch meant, let alone anything else. And she's like, I really think this will help you. What it's up to you, but if you want to buy it, you can. And so I got it because I didn't want to walk out of there empty-handed and just seem like I was stalking or anything like that. And I kept thinking about her after I left the store, and I just felt like she was a teacher. I didn't even know how to explain that. Like literally did not know how to explain it, but it just felt that way. And so I went into the store a few days after and I was like, I have this weird feeling that you're my teacher. And she's like, well, you don't really ask people like that, because there's a lot of people who want to be taught this. There's a lot of people that want to be taught how to walk a path. And so that's, people pay for those classes, and I was like, I don't really know what that even means. I just started learning that, I have gifts, and I just started reading for people. I don't really know anything about any of this, but it's just a feeling I had. And I seen her pause, and she kind of went off, like looking away. And she says, you know what? You go home, and I want you to draw a picture of your guides and bring it to me tomorrow. And so I did, and I drew the ones that I did know or learn of through working, not really working, but, going into the other shop close to home, and they, would see little things about me, and then, discovering that, they're there, ask and you shall receive kind of thing. And so I went home and I drew my grandfather Zach, which I call him grandfather Zach because I cannot pronounce his name at all. It's some kind of Z-A-C-H, and then it goes on. And I don't know what tribe he comes from. I honestly don't. And maybe somebody would know where a name of a Z in it in the beginning, the Z-A-C-H kind of sound. I don't. I just shortened it to Zach. He looks native to me. And he's always with me. And he does give guidance when he's called, like he'll step forward during certain things. But he's always on my right side, and he's a strength, a force of strength all on its own. But then I had my snake guide who sits on the top of my head, half cobra, half rattle tail cobra head. And Anarch is his name, what he revealed to me. So I drew him, and then I drew my granddad, because those were the only three that I had known of as of yet. And so I drew a picture of them, and on grandfather, like I'm looking at granddad, I'm trying to draw a portrait of him. I'm like, okay, hold still, granddad, that kind of thing, joking around with him, of course, because that's humor is my thing. I love to make everything fun. But I was like, hold still, let me see. And he's wearing his, leather pants with like it's not a skirt. It would be like a bib that ties on each side. And again, if anybody has any kind of significant knowledge of that, like I don't know. And it's, it's just my granddad who's been with me. And like, I only research as far as they come to present themselves to me and what I need to learn. And maybe there was a significance to that, and he's been waiting all this time for me to catch on to it. I don't know, but that's what he looks like. No shirt, size drawing that, and his long hair with his one braid on the side. And So I was drawing that, and then there was a maple leaf that was tied to the side of him in his little bib thing. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. So I drew the little maple leaf, and I was like, what does that mean, as I'm talking to him? And he just looks over at me in his stoic way, like he always does, and smiles. And so I was like, okay, well, this is something that's a message that I'm going to get later on. Okay, I get it, you know. So I take the picture to my teacher the next day, and she looks over at it and she points to the leaf and she says, what is this? And I was like, it's a maple leaf. And she's like, a maple leaf? And I was like, yeah. I was like, I don't know why granddad's wearing it, but you know, he was. And so I drew it. And yeah, I don't know the significance of it or anything like that. And she's like, I do. I know the significance. And so I want to tell you, yesterday when I was talking to my own ancestors and spirit guides, they were telling me that I needed to show you the ways, but I wanted you to participate and take action in this and self-discovery. And you did, because you seen the maple leaf. And this maple leaf I had grabbed from a tree from a house that I was doing a very severe house cleansing on. And so this is significant, and you didn't even realize it. And so we will move forward with this. And so your feelings are right. And I want you to come to drumming circle with me at my home, you know. And she had a roommate, but she was also another spiritual healer that was kind of like, I don't know, like she became a secondary teacher. And I don't know if that was the way it was meant to be, but it was that way, very much energetically. But the one was my main spiritual teacher. She was the one, I was under her wing for sure by spirit calling. And so I went to drumming circle, and I took everything so seriously because I in my heart, I just didn't want to dishonor at all. I just had that, you just know, you just have the feeling, and I don't know, you go with it. I can't, like I said, like I can explain it to the best of my experiences and what I felt and what I seen. But as far as like the rule book, I've never seen it myself personally. And, you know, here on this side of the world, we don't have we have teachers that spirit calls us to for certain things, but literally spirit's our teacher. We didn't grow up in our native ancestral homes or lands. We didn't, you know, grow up in those towns or tribes where, you know, we were sought after. You know, it is a very much a spiritual calling, I think, with any circumstances, even in the past, you know, where just like what happened with me and my teacher, that mutual calling was put forth. But you know, it's different. You don't have the knowledge of your lands, you know, and I didn't know anything about it. So, you know, with that said, you know, moving forward, yeah, I learned how to cast a circle and how to call in the elements. And, you know, I remember my teacher once telling me, when you're ready, you will have your own deity that will come to you when you're ready. It may be a while, and it may not. She's like, but in your own time. But for now, we're going to learn the elements, and we're going to learn the medicine wheel, and we're going to learn all these different things. And, you know, and we'll move on from there. And so she was teaching me all of that stuff, and I was just taking it all in. And I'll tell you, the magic that I felt during this whole experience, the energies of the elements and how they presented themselves and how they shown up and how they let me know that they were real, I cannot explain in full detail other than to tell you that they are living primal beings: water, earth, fire, air, spirit. Real. Experienced it personally. And I know that there's a lot of videos that you'll get a lot of different people like me that explain it in their own way. And this is my own true, authentic way of saying it's a thing. It's real. And so that time of my life was very magical, and I hope I don't get teary-eyed explaining what happens next, because the moment you know that spirit is real within nature and how spirit manifests is so amazing. I can't even explain in words. So my teacher said, I got a message that you are to do a naming ceremony and it is your time and you are ready for this. And so it was sometime in August, and she said, on this day, I want you to come. But before you come, I want you to take a salt bath in your favorite incense or oil. And I want you to wear something loose fitting, but presentable before spirit. And I said, okay, not knowing fully what this was about. I went home that day, and a few days later, it's the day before, I take my salt bath with this incense perfume oil that a friend of mine gave me that's just smelled so heavenly. And I put that in my bath with roses and stuff like that. And next morning I get up and I'm so excited. I go to my job, I do my shift, and then after I get off, I go to meet my teacher there. And when I walked in the house, her and the other woman was, and in the back, she had all the candles laid out for the 4 elements, and all of the crystals and rocks and sage. She had saged that whole area again, and had still been saging. Even as I'm walking in, she saged the whole house, everything. She cleansed, seriously cleansed. And she said, are you ready? And she's like, I want you to know that today you're going to know spirit in the most profound, natural way. And as far as I've ever known, even within my own family, because her whole family were practicing. And so she grew up with the naming ceremonies and all that in the Celtic way. And so she said, you're going to meet spirit today, like really, like more profound than you've ever experienced in your life. And the gift is profound. This is a huge honor for me to do this. And it's a huge honor for you to experience this. And so she had written everything out, and she said for a week she had been hearing a certain song, but she wouldn't tell me what it was that had led her. Spirit was giving her the messages of what my name was, what it meant, and what my totem was. And so she opens circle and she calls in the spirits, and she goes on to say what my purpose is, and what my name is, and as she's explaining this, she tells me, your totem is the butterfly. And I could hear my granddad behind me said, look up at how beautiful the sky is. And I looked up as she's talking, and this big, huge, huge white butterfly comes darting from straight up in the sky. Because that's where I was looking, because Granddad said, look up. And so I did. And it came straight down from there, and it landed on my arm. And I come to find out it was a lyra butterfly, which is an ancestral butterfly. It means your ancestors are with you. And she was explaining to me that the butterfly was my totem, because I was here to remind the world of all the joy and beauty that the world possesses. And I bawled because I'm looking down at this butterfly, and I have never seen anything so beautiful or so perfect in my life. And this little butterfly was looking straight up at me, and I can see every detail of its face. I could see its big doughy eyes just looking saply right at me. And he was so precious and so cute. And I have a painting of him on my wall that I had just done a few weeks ago, because all these memories are starting to come back with the Morrigan coming back. And it's reminding me, because she said that I need to get back into my, I know this might trigger a lot of people, Uh, but I'm just gonna say the word, that seems to offend people with the cultural appropriation thing, but how else do I explain this? I'm just gonna tell my experiences, and for whatever it's worth, everybody that watches these videos can make up their own mind on it. Like, I'm not here to validate or anything. I'm just here to share my stories authentically. And so I'm just gonna say that, when the Morrigan came back the second time, she said, you need to get back into your shamanic work and you need to tell your stories. Okay. So I'm like, literally, like, this was the most amazing experience of my life. Like, above all the experiences, and I've had many, but to be able, your teacher, as this butterfly is flying down, is telling you that your totem is a butterfly, she's not even paying attention. She's reading what she had gotten from spirit. And it's looking up at me, and its face is so profound. Like, it's got to come from spirit. It's so perfect, so completely perfect, and looking at me lovingly, like, just deeply lovingly. And it was so fluffy and pure white, like no other marks. It's just pure white. And I'm bawling because, like, spirit chose me. And I'm sitting there thinking while she's saying this, but I'm just another person. I'm just, that regular girl that grew up with the life experiences that I did. And I'm looking down at this butterfly going, how can this be? Like, I was chosen for this, me. And meeting spirit like that for the first time in such a natural, naturistic way. It's real. Spirit's a part of everything in nature. It's real. So, to learn that I was here to spread joy when all I've experienced is darkness, but through that darkness, when I look back, I always found joy through spirit, because I always ran towards spirit whenever I was walking through the darkness, and I always found the joy of my situation. And when I look back at my childhood and everything, I was like, yeah, I was always walking with God, or source. And so, oh yeah, to this day, like, as you can see, it emotionally touches me in such a profound way, because, like, this doesn't happen every day. Maybe now, with the huge shifts that are coming, there will be this profound thing for everybody where they all get to share in that, as they realize how much nature and spirit is a part of this. And I hope so. I hope everybody gets a chance to experience how beautiful and amazing that spirit is. And that's not to say that there isn't heaviness or entities to set boundaries with or anything like that. This isn't all butterflies and rainbows. It is in this story, but that's not how it works. But there, even with that, even with those kinds of experiences, there is beauty, there is light, even within the heaviness. And it's something that I've learned ever since I was a child. And so that butterfly stayed with me until I said my vows to spirit. And so I'm not going to share my name, but the totem, yes, and the message that came across through spirit and how beautiful it was, yes. And my teacher was smiling at me, and my granddad said, behold my little tulip. And so I had to look up the flower, because obviously this tulip thing, there was a message within a message. And I found out tulips stand for healing. And so he was calling me my little healer. And so I think back about all this, and it's just, like, so incredible that I still can't wrap my mind around it. But it happened just the same. It happened. It authentically, realistically happened. And so, oh, my teacher is smiling down on me, and I was thinking about her name and I was like, what kind of experience did you had? And I don't want to go into details. That's her life story and I'm not going to do that. And besides, it's a very sacred thing, but it was something that I was thinking about because if something this profound happens to each one who has this calling, this path, like, and spirit touches us in this way of bringing our totems to us, like it just makes you think, right? And so my mind was blown and it's still blown to this day. I said my vows to spirit and that butterfly lifted up and it flowed straight back into the sky, straight up. Like not off somewhere, not left or right. It went straight up. I watched it because I was still awestricken. And the tears are still flowing, and my teacher's starting to tear up too because I'm sure she remembered her first time and how beautiful it was for her. So in a sense, I guess she got a gift too because she got to re-experience her own along with mine, and there was that pure connection of sisterhood, which she always felt like a sister to me, and yeah, beautiful experience. And for 3 days after, I was in pure bliss. I had such energy surges coming through me that I couldn't even tell you what dimension I was in at that time because I felt like I was in between the worlds, and I always explain it that way. That I don't feel like I'm just in the physical. I feel like I'm all around, and I felt like that for a few days after. Yeah, literally. It was the most incredible experience of my life. So yeah, this is like the very, like you would think that with all the other experiences with learning how to drum and learning how to, you know, set up circle and, release the ancestors or spirits. Because I was just working with the land spirits and the fae at that time. They were coming around and presenting themselves and I was learning from them. But that was the beginning. Literally that moment was the beginning of my whole world changing, and life just wasn't the same after that. And I don't think it could be for anybody. And it started my path. It literally started a series of lessons, hard ones and beautiful ones. And with that, I want to close on this. And because there's a lot more experiences to share from this moment of working with my teacher and with the Fae in general. But I think I'm going to close at this moment and on to the next. Don't know when I'm going to post the next one up. It just depends on how much time I have. It could be tomorrow or the next day. I don't think I'm going to post any more videos for today. This is been sharing a lot of information and my voice is like finally getting raw a little bit. And I'm working on my relationship with the Morgan as well as, and I'm taking classes that I'm really excited about taking to develop that relationship with her. Now that she's come a second time, I feel like this is going to be a thing, but I'm feeling good because I have honored what she came here to encourage me to do. This was very hard. It may not seem like it because once I get to talking about spirit, I talk with such passion and dedication and love, like pure love when I talk about spirit. And they mean everything to me, as well as humanity does, as well as, the earth and all the living creatures that exist within it. And so it is a great honor for me to share these stories, and I do say it with passion, but in the beginning it's always hard because I have to crawl out of my shell and it's terrifying. And so this is why I would post a couple videos and then I would shut down, not only because of fear, but other profound experiences happening at the same time. But like the Morgan was explaining to me, I need discipline. I need to be able to move forward even when I'm going through more profound experiences and keep disciplined with, doing my daily stuff and with the work that I'm supposed to do for humanity as well. And so with that said, I think this concludes part 2 of my life experiences walking with spirit. And I'm going to shut down for now. And so For those of you who might be interested in working with me and feel pulled to doing that, you can find me on Facebook, on my Facebook page that I share with my husband, as he's had his own experiences and works with the Norse ancestors and has been walking this path for 16 years. He is a minister of the Norse faith. He is certified. He had his own teacher through his calling, and so his services are on there as well. But if you're looking, if you want to check us out and see what we have to offer, our Facebook page together is Weirdwell, and then I also have one of my own called Spiritual Life Coach Jennifer Cunningham, or Psychic. No, I think I left it as Psychic Medium Jennifer Cunningham, but either way, you can find me here or there. And with that said, I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you.